Seder. Today we're going to have an amazing Omud talking about Dinei Tumah Tahara again. Lo Leinu, this topic, I mean, it's not Lo Leinu, it's Lo Leinu that the topic is handicapped people. People are missing legs. And this is sadly nogea to today's situations with the soldiers. Shalom Neda. So let's just start the Mishnah, Samachem on the base bottom of the page. Hakitea yoytze bekav sheloi divrei Rabbi Meir. A kav is basically like a wooden shoe that the person misken has no foot. Instead of the foot, he has like a clog, like a wooden something that looks like a wooden shoe, and he inserts his the end of his stump. You can call it. That's true. Yeah, but it could be even shaped like a shoe. It's like a stump for him. And the end of his shin, of his leg, he puts in there, in the shoe. So he doesn't really wear it as a shoe. It's more like aesthetically there, so people don't see, the dead end of his leg, of his shin. Okay, so according to Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Meir says it's like a shoe. The Rashi says that this is considered as levush min al didehu. He's a minal didei. He's a kitea, the person, the katua. He has no foot. So this is his wooden shoe. And wooden shoes you can wear on Shabbos. What's the problem? That's Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yosi Oiser says, Rashi de lav tachshitu. Rabbi Yosi says he's not allowed to wear that because it's not a tachshit. Well, this is obviously very peculiar. What do you mean? What's the argument, whether it's a shoe or a tachshit? So there's, generally speaking, machlokes Rashi Tosfos, which is not even so clear. It's like as you learn the sugya, you see a hint over here, a hint over there. The Tosfos is clear. Rashi basically says later on that a shoe is lav tachshitu, means this is, objectively speaking, the Torah doesn't see that as a shoe. Even if you do, but the Torah doesn't see that as a shoe. We're going to compare it to real, even a person who wears a wooden shoe, see under Yom Kippur. In other words, something that's not made out of leather is halachically questionable if it's called a proper shoe. And therefore, to wear that on Shabbos, again, could be if a person has a healthy foot, maybe then to wear wooden shoe would be okay. But maybe you add both things together. The Tiferet Sol says it doesn't really need it for functionality. It's only for looking okay, to cover up his, the ugly end of his foot. One could say that beautifies his body, right? Very nice. But here we say no, something made out of wood that's supposed to look like a shoe, that halachically is not called properly a shoe, and therefore it's considered as a masui. It's a chiddush that halacha interferes in his own psychology, and halacha doesn't see that as a proper beged because it's made out of wood, not made out of leather. So it's mashma from Rashi. Tosfos argues with Rashi for various reasons, and Tosfos says no, it's not that the wooden thing is a treif. Elamai, and by the way, Rabbi Meir says, who cares? Rabbi Meir says that for him it's minal. Look at Rashi, minal didehu. It's very nice that Yukim and Rashi here. Rashi and Mishnah twice is meduik, minal didei. For him, that's a shoe. That's what Rabbi Meir says. And Rabbi Yossi says, lav tachshitu. Doesn't say tachshit didei. Rabbi Yossi says, it's objectively speaking, we don't call that an item that beautifies your body. It covers, it's like a bandage. It's like taking away the problem. And it's made out of wood, it's not good. Tosfos says that the chashash is because it may fall. If it's made out of leather, then it sticks very nicely, then it's nice and tight. But the one made out of wood is not so tight, and therefore it may fall. How to pick it up? He can't walk. So Tosfos he can walk because he has a stick. He has a walking stick, and he can walk to chap the kav and quickly wear it. Right? We'll see more as the sugi develops. Nafkamina bit Rashi and Tosfos. What would be if you have a modern 2024 version of a wooden one, and that wooden one is very tight for sure. He talks about it in Mishnah Berurah. Then it would be okay according to Tosfos, but not okay according to Rashi. According to Rashi, we don't view that as levush. We don't always go with das b'nei Adam. Halacha doesn't view a wooden thing as a shoe, even if it's a real shoe, let alone when it's a thing of a handicapped. The halacha doesn't see it as a tachshit. Now let's talk about Tumah Tahara. What does that mean? Sometimes, in order to pad, they would pad the kav. The kav would have like a hole, a receptacle, in which you'd put, like tissues, like all kinds of fluffy things, cotton, in order to, ease the pain, right? And therefore, then it's mekabel tuma, meaning because it's made out of wood. things that are made out of wood that are pshute klei eitz, not mekabel tuma. Excuse me, question. Well, if it has a hole, then it's not pshute klei eitz. Wrong. That's a chiddush of the sugya, which means pshute klei eitz means something that is holding something inside. You have a plastic, a wooden cup, a wooden pot, a wooden something to hold items inside. That's called klei eitz. That's klei kibul. But if the only thing that it's mekabel is the leg of the person, that's not called it. The leg of the person is not sitting inside the wooden thing and you walk around with it. It covers the leg, but it doesn't contain the leg as, of course, as a cup holds the tea or the coffee or the coins. Yes, that's the idea here. And therefore, the chiddush is that only if it has ktitin, if when you take it off, when you, not you, chas v'shalom, when the handicapped guy goes home and takes it off, and inside the shoe, what's inside? All the tissues and the fluffy things, that's called the kli kibul. And therefore, only then the kli etz will be mekabel tuma. Any tuma, by the way, tumas meis, tumas sheretz. Yeah, tumas medras we'll discuss later. Regular tuma, the run-of-the-mill tuma, meis, sheretz, all these things is mekabel tuma only if it's meant to contain something inside of it in the normal fashion. Okay, Ad Kan, Hakofa Aleph, that was number one. It's containing the ktitin. Doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. Well, it's containing them. But that's better. It's good enough. It's good enough. It's good enough. לא משנה. It contains the ktitin בעצם. It doesn't matter what they're for. It's containing the ktitin. I hear what you're saying. Okay, I hear you. That's good enough to be called a container. Smuchas shaloi. If you saw those horrible pictures of of all the handicapped people, lo aleinu, what's smuchas? That's the guy that walks on his shins. He basically walks like he walks on his knees and shins. The shins are החלק התחתון של הרגל. Between the knee and the foot is called a shin. Smuchas shaloi. Now what does he carry? He has like shin pads. You know, like people who play sports, right? They have them. He has shin pads because he's walking he's walking like that on his knees and shins. And on the shins, he has those pads made out of leather, not wood. Tmein medras. So first of all, there are Tumah medras. What's Tumas medras? Tumas medras means that anything that a person rides on is Tumas merkab. What he sits on is the chair or anything. What he walks on has Tumas medras. Tumas medras means, as we all know, a person is a zav. Let's say that his skin is also a zav on top of everything. And now those things under him are not rishon l'tuma, they're avatuma, right? A zav who lies on 10 mattresses, all these mattresses are avatuma, right? Yeah, and so too, what's underneath him is avatuma. That's always the rule in a zav. So Tomei medras, the yoitzin ben Shabbos, you're allowed to wear it on Shabbos for sure. Why? First, it's made out of leather. That's his lavush. That's what he wears. It's not a question of it's made out of leather, so we're out of the wood problem, out of the woods. That's interesting. Another nafkamina of a foot, of a shoe, is you're not allowed to go into Beis Hamikdash or even Har Bayis with your shoes on. And those leather shoes, you're not allowed to go in there with leather shoes. Now, those leather shoes, what about them? Nichnosin ba'azor, you're allowed to go with them to the Azora because it's not a shoe, because it doesn't support the end, what's supposed to be the feet, it supports the shins. It's a chiddush. Even though his shins are his feet, but we still don't view that as shoes. Yeah, it's as if he's a sportsman with the shins on with the shin pads that happens to be crawling. But lamaisa, it's not a shoe. It's not a shoe. It's not meant for the end of the body, for the bottom of the body. Therefore, it's not called a shoe. Le'inyan entering the azora. Mashiach and medras does make a difference. A medras can be many things. Could be a saddle, could be a chair, a bed, all these things. And therefore, anything you support yourself with is tumas medras. Now, the third story, it's getting worse and worse. Kiseh v'smuchos sheloi. Oh, kiseh v'smuchos is like this. Before they invented the wheelchair, what would they have, lo aleinu? If you saw the picture, you have a person who has like a little stool, and he walks on the stool. He supports himself with two little cubes of wood or something, and he pushes himself forwards with two things. He has a chair that he sits on, and he's tied to the chair. And he also has his feet misken are amputated, so then, or in the middle of the shin or somewhere like that. So there he also has those smuchos. Yeah, he has things to cover his feet, and sometimes cover his would-be feet, and sometimes he supports himself on that too. He goes back, forwards. He like leaps forwards with a chair, and a little bit also he puts his weight on those little receptacles, that are the end of his would-be feet. Tmein medres. It's Tama medres. Why? Because those, we're talking now not about the chair. We're talking now about those two things, like these holders at the end of his feet. They're Tama medres because although he's not supporting himself the entire time, but he supports himself some of the time on that. Part of his walk is supporting on that. Tumas medras, as we'll see at the end of the shir, has to do a lot with what you support yourself as you sit or as you stand or as you walk. The en yotzin ben b'Shabbos. Why don't you walk? Why not to walk with them in Shabbos? Even if it's made out of wood, let's say. Hey, where's Rabbi Meir? He said it's okay. Says Rashi here, they're like dangling in the air and they may fall. They may fall. It's more likely they're going to fall than the first guy. The first guy, is walking on a stick. He's healthier. This guy, it's very likely that they're like dangling in the air a little bit. They may fall, and therefore it's a chashash. Rashi brings another shita, but that's the main thing. Right? Rashi says the main chashash is that they're going to fall. Loi manchia ara. As I told you, they're not really on the ground. They're not well grounded. They may fall on the way. If they may fall, that's a sakona. That's a chashash. It's going to pick them up. The einich notzin ben ba'azoro. One's not allowed to go with them into the azoro. Why? Because they are at the end of the legs. In other words, they're instead of shoes. You're not allowed to go to Beis Hamikdash with them because they are at the very in the bottom of what's his end of the body. Baruch Hashem, we have healthy feet. We have to thank Hashem. He has his feet cut off. Instead of the feet, these are the things that support his entire body from downstairs to upstairs. They are the bottom thing. They're equivalent to shoes, as opposed to the shin pads, which are not. They're not supporting the bottom of his body. No. He uses the non-bottom part to walk, to crawl. But it's not the bottom of the body, the shin pads. The shank and these are like shoes because they support the bottomest part of the body, the lowest part of the body. Therefore, the equivalent to shoes, and you can't go with them to Beis Hamikdash. Now, a fourth thing, nothing to do with the handicapped. Luktamin toirin ben yotzin ben. Luktamin is, Rashi says, is some kind of mask. It's a very scary mask that's there to scare off children. To put on a mask like to look like a monster, scare off the kids. So they are tehoirin. It's not called a kli. It's not. It's a shtus. It's a dvar kishkush. It's a davar of nonsense. They're made for fun, for making people scared, and therefore they're not called a kli tashmish. They're not useful in any constructive way. It's not a tachshit, and also you're not allowed to wear them on Shabbos because it's not a tachshit. You think it's funny? No, it's not funny. It's not called something that's a tachshit. And therefore maybe a mask that's nice. Maybe it's different. I don't know. Maybe only a scary one because it's negative. No, I'm serious. I remember that it says in the end, towards the end of Kalim, it says some dress that's only meant for zoina, for a woman who's lo tsanua, is some kind of hat or something, is not makabel tuma because the usage is so low that we don't view that as a kli. I remember that for sure. And therefore some things are below. We don't view anything that any Michigan made in I don't know where. In Los Angeles, we don't consider that as a kli. Okay, I don't know about happy masks. That's another shayla, but that's what we say. And it's not the main part of the sugya now. We're now going to go much more into the Tumah Tahara, the chule of the handicapped. Amar leRav Nachman. So let's remember, what did we say in the Mishnah? We said that according to Rabbi Meir, the handicapped guy may walk with the kav, with the stump, with that wooden shoe / stump. He can wear it on Shabbos, according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yossi says, "Osir, we don't view that as a shoe, or we're scared it's going to fall, and therefore it's also." Amar Rav Nachman, hey chitnan. Rav asked Rav Nachman, "What's the right way to learn the Mishnah?" We're going to see very soon that there was a big debate about who said what. There is another version by the Amoraim that says that Rabbi Meir says Osir, and Rabbi Yossi says Mutar. They switched opinions. Amalei lo yadana. Rav Nachman says, "I don't know. I don't know what the right version is." And Hilchatamai, what's halacha? Is the guy allowed to walk with that wooden shoe to the street, yes or no? Amar lo yadana, I don't know that either. Itma, so let's try and find out. Itma, Omar Shmuel, Eina Kitea. Shmuel's version was the opposite of ours. He starts off the Mishnah of saying, Eina Kitea Yoitze, says Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Yossi allows. Unlike our Mishnah, that's what Shmuel says. Rav Huna, okay, that's not a big deal. Rav Huna was Shmuel's favorite Talmud. So Rav Huna also said, Eina Kitea. Rav Huna followed the gears of his Rebbe, and he said that Rabbi Meir said that it's not allowed, and Rabbi Yossi said it is allowed, unlike our Mishnah. Amar Rabbi Yosef, comes Rabbi Yosef, okay, very nice. Shmuel and Akitea, Rav Huna and Akitea, Shmuel and Rav Huna, both Yosef, Talmid Chachomim, Amiroim, they said that according to Rabbi Meir is Osir, Anana Minit, and Akitea. We all have a confusion. Baruch Hashem, we too we don't have to be smarter than them. We learn like Shmuel and Rav Huna and Akitea. Basket lo Rabbi Bar Shira, ay. Comes an attack from Rabbi Bar Shira, and he's attacking what Rabbi Yosef said. Lo shmiya lohu, didn't you hear? Oh, didn't hear the following story? Oh, dematni Rav Chanan bar Rove. Rav Chanan bar Rove taught the Mishnah lechia bar Rav to Chia, the son of Rav, kamei de Rav, in front of Rav. Rav was a big man. Bekituna de Rav, in a small room adjacent to the Medrash of Rav. Kitun is a small room, and he taught him like you guys. And I should be happy, right? What's that kofel, right? We see, just like we said up until now, that according to Rabbi Meir, it is not okay, and Rabbi Yossi allows. But the problem is, here comes the punchline. Rav was witnessing as his son was being taught, and Rav, I don't know what I didn't say, he went like this, he made a motion to show the other way around, switch it around. So Rav is against Shmuel and against Rav Huna and against everybody, and Rav says no. Rav holds like our Mishnah, Rabbi Meir Mati, Rabbi Yossi Oyser. So why are you arguing with Rav? Why are you dafka following Shmuel and Rav Huna? Let's follow Rav. Omar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, and that's soon going to be the halacha also. Omar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Let's now give a siman to remember Rav's shita. The simonech samech. The letter samech, Rabbi Yossi Oyser. So nice. Rabbi Yossi Oyser. Right? Samech. Rabbi Yossi Oyser. That's a way to remember this Mishnah for the rest of our life. It's also daf samech vav. Yeah. So Rabbi Yossi Oyser. Okay, and it's 6. Vav is 6 in English, right? Somach. By the way, the Achronim ask, I think this was Emes, why did he say Simon Rabbi Meir Matir? Because that's not the Lashon of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, doesn't say before Rabbi Meir Matir. The text of the Mishnah verbatim, Rabbi Yossi Oyser. So if you wonder, why are you following Rav against Shmuel? Look, Shmuel himself at the end of the day also regretted what he said, and he also moved to Rav's camp, and he also thinks that really Rabbi Meir Matir, Rabbi Yossi Oyser. Now we're going to expand and talk about the wooden shoe, not only the wooden stump. We're going to see that even wooden shoes are questionable halachically, and that reflects on our Mishnah. It says in the Mishnah, Cholza besandal she'enoi shaloi. We're talking about chalitza. So the sandal, the shoe that's supposed to be the chalitza shoe, the she takes off his foot, is not so simple. There are many conditions. It should be a good shoe. Should fit his size. Yeah, it shouldn't be too big, too small. It should have a sole. Yeah, and not be bare. There's a whole guy. I know I have a friend who's a Dayan, and he told me they have a special shoe for chalitza in Beis Din to fit all the criteria. Yes, I guess different sizes, from leather, as we're going to see. Yeah, it's not supposed to. Yeah, you have to have all the halachic conditions. What's called a proper, maybe not know, but there's a special chalitza. The Gemara discusses sandal, shoe, covered, not covered. Ganze Meise around Daf something in Yevomis, which I don't remember. I remember it's an issue. Now look at the Mishnah. It says Cholza besandal she'ein shaloi. She took off his shoe, but the shoe doesn't belong to him. Yeah, or besandal shel etz. Let's underline this. Yeah, a wooden sandal, which is not normal, because what's a normal thing always in halacha? A leather shoe. Oy shel smoil beyamin. She took off the shoe from his right foot, because that's me'akev, right? We learn it from other halachas. It has to be the right foot. But he, by mistake, wore the left shoe on the right foot. Chalitza kshera. But yeah, but it's kosher. Oh, so what do you see? So we see that, basically, we have an opinion that holds that a wooden shoe is kosher. It's considered to be a shoe, right? So who is that? And now we continue to elaborate on the Mishnah. V'amrinan, we said, Man Tana, who is the Tana that believes that a wooden shoe is a good shoe halachically? Amar Shmuel Rabbi Meir, he says Shmuel it's Rabbi Meir. Why Rabbi Meir? Look, that nan hakiteh yotze b'kav shelo div Rabbi Meir. Oh, so you see Shmuel switch sides. You noticed? Shmuel all of a sudden is saying the Rabbi Meir believes that the wooden shoe or wooden stop are called shoes, are called a proper item. That's Rabbi Meir. V'yoisi oiser, very good. So according to Rashi, this is very good. Rashi is celebrating now because now we see that this is a proper shoe. Tosis is much harder because Tosis said it's only chashash, maybe it's going to fall, right? What does that do with the Yovamis, right? So Tosis says, you can see Tosis says one is reflecting on the other. He says that Kevin Linian Shabbos Gozu Dilma Mifsik en Roy Lalech Boy en Roy Lalech Boy. In other words, just like on Shabbos, be'etzem, wooden shoes are okay. We have nothing against wooden shoes. You know, in Holland, they wear wooden shoes. Very nice. But because taka, it may fall all the time, it's not the shoe that we're looking for, just like a big man cannot wear a small shoe in chalitza or otherwise. Instead, the shoe that fits his foot, so something may fall all the time, is not a good shoe. But it's not only because of the material. As I told you in Nafkamina, what would be if you have a wooden shoe? That's perfect. The next Nike shoe, Adidas, whatever, all my kids are telling me, from wood, very, very good. There wouldn't be a problem, right? According to Tosfos, it's not be'etzem a problem because it's wood. It's poshut because it may fall, but because it may fall creates a problem on Shabbos and also for chalitza, because the chalitza has to be a proper shoe where he feels comfortable to walk and may not fall. It's also din in chalitza. Okay, the seder. The Rav Huna Hodorbe. The other opinion which supported Shmuel and originally said that Rabbi Meir also and Rabbi Yossi Mutar, Rav Huna also regretted it. The Tanya, welcome to the scary part. Sandal shel sayodin. Oh, before we continue, yes, sandal shel sayodin basically is a sandal that is not meant for proper walking. A sandal that is worn is made out of wood, and it's only worn by people who sell seed. Seed is like plaster, like the raw acidy, very, very acidy plaster, and he sells it. And he walks around in the seed, yeah. And if he would have leather shoes, he would eat into the leather. Yeah, it would like corrode the leather, and therefore he has to wear something made out of wood to protect his feet from the seed, from the plaster. Okay. So B'chlal, there's a question if it's called a shoe. We'll discuss later. Let's assume now it's a shoe. Okay. So it's made out of wood, and it's like not the highest quality normal thing to walk around the street with. Tomeh medres. Why is it Tomeh medres? Because he walks on it. Who cares if it's protection or shmotection? At the end of the day, he's walking on it. He supports his entire body on the weight. His entire weight is on what? On that piece of wood. Therefore, it's Tomeh medres. By the way, don't get confused. Avishai, I think you're going to ask me a question now, what you were trying to say before. Tumas medres, a wooden item for Tumas medres doesn't have to be with a hole. Or even if it's only to contain a foot, it is good enough to be Mekabel Tumah. Rashi says there at the end of the page. In other words, the whole concept that a wooden item has to be containing something in order to be Tomeh is only for Tumas mace, because the psukim of Sak, and Beged, and which read a million times, it's about the mace. But for medres, yeah, in theory, let's say you have some kind of sandal which is completely flat. You just walk on a flat thing, but you support yourself with it, or you sit on something. You sit on a flat piece of wood. That's your chair. It's Mekabel Tumah of medres. It's not Mekabel Tumas mace or sheretz because it's not a receptacle. But Tumas Zav, Medres, Zav, Nida, Zova, all these people, that section of Tumah, it is Mekabel Tumah. So I don't care about anything. That's Mekabel Tumas Medres. That's good because he supports himself on that. That's his bottom. That's below his body. Tumah Medres. Now we're saying even more. The Isha Choletzes boy. You see, even that lowly wooden shoe is good enough to be a shoe of chalitza. So we see that this opinion holds that a wooden shoe, even of lower quality, is called a shoe. For him, he walks around the house when he does the seed, the plastering, the painting, that's called a shoe. The Yoitzin B'Shabbos, Diva Rabbi Akiva, for the same reason, Yoitzin B'Shabbos. In other words, the same issue as we saw before. Rabbi Kitzur, who's Rabbi Akiva? He's supporting what we know, La Loch, like Rabbi Meir, right? And continues the Bryce and says, V'loi hoi duloi. There are other people who argued and didn't agree with Rabbi Akiva. They hold that the wooden shoe is garnished. Is not, I don't know about Tumas Medres, that's another issue. It's not a shoe, no chalitza, no Shabbos. The Hatanya, hoi duloi. But there's another brisa that says some people did admit to him, agreed to him. Omar Rav Huna, remember Rav Huna, Now we see Arvuna switching sides. Man hoidu lo Rabbi Meir, man loidu lo Rabbi Yossi. Very, very good. The one who agreed with Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Akiva's pro wooden shoe. Rabbi Akiva belongs to the party that says we support wooden shoes. We love wooden shoes. They're considered shoes for chalitza, for tumah, for Shabbos, for your grandmother, for everything. And that's Rabbi Meir. And Rabbi Yossi oiser samich samich. Samich samich. Rabbi Yossi says no. The wooden shoe is gornished mitnisht according to Rashi, and therefore no chalitza, no nothing, no v'chulei. However, there's a big question here in Tosfos. Tosfos asks a question which I really want to see this time when we finish the Amud. Tosfos asks a question. When you say lo hoidu lo, if you don't call it a shoe, I respect that. It's not a shoe. Some Michigan people, we decided wooden shoes. A Torah doesn't agree with that. But for Tumas Medras, who cares? Tosfos says, "Lamasu Tumas Medras." We see a Gemara in Psachim and many other places. If a person took some seorim, he took some kupa shel chitim, he took some wheat, dried it, and he sits on it. Took a bunch of wheat and he made it into a chair. It's makabel Tumas Medras. So you see, very lowly things made out of wood are also called, any Meshuggah thing can also be called Tumas Medras. So this, I understand it's not a shoe, but it's still a wooden platform to be Mekabel Tumas Medras. That's Tosfos' question, just to pique your interest, and we'll continue. Okay? I want to first continue to go with the flow and then continue. Omar Rav Yosef, now comes Rav Yosef and says, Rav Yosef is now adding to that, Man loy hoidu loy, you know who's the one who did not agree with Rabbi Akiva, i.e., who's the one who said that a wooden item, a wooden shoe is not called a shoe? Yochanan ben Nuri. It's Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Okay, which Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri? The Tanan. Now, you have to see that there's another Gilsa here. You see the base? Let's follow the base to the Gra, let's do the Gra. The Gra says, Machzeles hakash v'shfoferes hakash, not kanim. Kaveres shel kash or machzeles shel kash, v'shfoferes shel kash. Now we're talking about straw items. You have a kaveres. A kaveres is a container which we saw in Daf Tes Amud Aleph. Yeah, a kaveres is Daf Ches Amud Aleph. Sorry, made a mistake. Daf Ches Amud Aleph. Kaveres was always made out of. We're going to see it also. Yeah, in Daf in Daled Amud Beis Bezos Hashem. And kaveres is something made out of the beehive, as we know. It's a beehive. It's made out of reeds. If you make a kaveres out of hay, straw, it's not as strong, not as mechubed, not as high quality. And shfaferes, a kind of tube, like a straw, shfaferes, a tube to hold something inside, is usually made out of konim. This is not made out of konim, it's shfaferes made out of straw. Yeah? What about them? Rabbi Akiva metame. Rabbi Akiva says that they're tome. Now, poshet pshat means what? We're talking about wooden items. In other words, those items are meant to be. No. Let me say even better. A normal kaveres and a normal shfaferes are made out of reeds. So reeds are much stronger than hay. Sure. So now what happens if you're lowering the standard and you made it out of straw instead of the konim? Says Rabbi Akiva, metame. Rabbi Akiva follows his own reasoning, meaning Rabbi Akiva, now we get the reason here. We all agree that a leather shoe is better than a wooden shoe. I'll tell you personal experience. I once went somewhere, they let you wear wooden shoes, a wooden clogs, like it was actually in Holland when I was there once. It was extremely uncomfortable. They are used to it. I went crazy by just walking 3 steps. I was going nuts. I don't know how these people, they're really nutty people, I guess, in many ways. And it was crazy. I'm telling you my own experience. Maybe they get used to it, they go with the craze. But it's not comfortable b'chlal. B'chlal. So now, not that Gor needs my askama, but basically the idea is as follows. The normal shoe is made out of leather, okay? You lower your standard, you made a shoe out of what? Wood. Says Rabbi Akiva, just like I say that an item that's meant to be out of konim, and you lower the standard, and you made it out of kash, and I still hold it stomach, it's the same Rabbi Akiva that said that a wooden shoe instead of leather is still tomeh. The common denominator, Rabbi Akiva believes that if you lower the standard, I'm stressing this because both konim and kash are both wooden. But the pshat is even within the wood, right? Even within the wood, you lowered it to something so flimsy. Rabbi Akiva says, if it's functional, I still called it kli. So too by the shoe, I lowered from leather, from the top chain of leather into some wood. That's still mekabel tumah. That's the logic of Rabbi Akiva. Who is the one loy hoidu loy? Rabbi Yochanan metaher. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri metaher. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says it's tohar. Rashi has another pshat. I'm not saying this now on purpose because I prefer finishing and going to the important tosfos. But that's a pshat. That's one of Rashi's pshatim. Amar Mar comes now a question which I prepared to you before. I prepared you for the question before. Sandal shel sayodin, Tome Medras. We're quoting the Brisa, saying a sandal shel sayodin, that sandal that the Sayad wears. Where does he wear it? When he's selling the seed in his shop, and he's not really interested in walking around with it. It's only protecting him as what? As so the seed, which is so acidy and and dangerous, is not going to hit his foot. Right? Okay? Tome Medras, frek the Gemara, halavli avdi. It's not meant to be walked on. It's not meant for walking bichlal. Even the Sayad doesn't walk with it when he goes to shul or to the chasana or to the tish or to the ball game, wherever he goes. He doesn't wear that funny. So what? Says Rashi, a big yesoid, which we all know, I guess, from other places. Daf Nun Tes. Remember Daf Nun Tes? We say that when the Torah talks about those medras, Moshe, all the zav business, all the things below the zav, it says Loshen Osid Yeshev. He will sit, or in English, he would sit. He's meant to sit on it. And the famous line goes, if people tell him, Amoid v'nase melachtenu, it's not Mekabel Tumah, which means, famous case in the Gemara, many places, later there's a box, and that box is meant to be opened from the top, like the one near the bima, on the bima, yeah? And the person sits on that box and he's a zav, no worry, nothing happened. Why? Because this box is not meant for sitting on, because when people want to use the box, they tell him, excuse me, Mr. Amoid, get up, please. It's not meant for you to sit here. It's not meant for sitting. It's not meant for it. You're sitting here, but it's really meant for us to store the stuff inside, the tablecloth, the white tablecloth on Motzei Shabbos, right? The shul. So get up. Such a thing is not the Kabul Tumas Medras. So too the shoe, which is not really a shoe, right? It's not really something you're meant to walk in Bechlal. And it's supposed to support yourself, the weight, in a way, and walk on it. It's supposed to be meant for walking if it's a shoe. And it's not. And says the Gemara, no. Omar Vacha Baravula, she can aside metail ba'acha megillah beisoi. The only reason why it's Mekabel Tumas Medras, because on his way home, from work to home, he still leaves them on. He doesn't wear it to the chasana and not to the ball game and not to the koila, lahavdil, but he does wear it when he walks from his workplace to the house. Could be 15, half an hour walk, could be 5 minutes walk. He doesn't take it off right away, so he still uses it, on the side as a shoe. So it's still called something. It's not a mod v'nasa malachtenu. It's not like the second he finishes protecting his feet, he's like, I'm getting out of these horrible shoes, which are not really shoes, they're just protectors. No, he also views them as shoes as he walks home, and Mimela, it still has enough of, the quality of a shoe to be called Metame Medras. Okay? Tosfos later. Let's see if we now manage to get to I'll be very happy if we get to the top line of the next page. Omar Abaye. Very nice. So what did we say in the Mishnah? If that wooden shoe, stamp, call it whatever you want, but that wooden item is meant to contain the pieces of whatever, the fluffy things, those things, the padding, the cushion, the padding things, then it's Mekabel Tuma. Okay? Says Abaye, Amar Abaye, Tumas Meis. As we said, in order for a wooden item, by the way, Rashi says Tumas Meis is Lav Dafka. Tumas Meis represents all other tumas except for medras. Rashi says a very cool pshat. Why? You know why? Because the only avisa tuma that the only way to become an avatuma, how can he become avatuma without being avatuma? How can he become avatuma without being avatuma? I mean what I'm saying. How can something become avatuma by touching avatuma? Either mace. A mace is ovi ovois, and if you touch it, become avatuma. Or a zav and zav those guys. Why? Because an avatuma is a zav, and when it sits on 10 chairs or 10 beds or the shoe or the thing, they become av. So that's what Rashi says. That's what they're always the top of each team. The mace, but really mace here doesn't have to mean mace. The concept that a wooden item is only mekabel tuma bekli kibul is true about mace, sheretz, and maybe other things as well, shech vazera, v'chule. Now, the end Tumah Medres. Oh, says Abaye, it's not Mekabel Tumas Medres. No, it's not Mekabel Tumas Medres. Why? Says Rashi Lo Mistamech Alei, which means basically Abaye says the person at the beginning of the Mishnah is the healthiest of them all. The Mishnah is deteriorating as we go along. That person, he has everything up to the foot. Maybe he has one healthy foot, maybe not. He has a cane and he's walking. Nobody wants to be instead of him. But Lamaisa, yeah, he's walking quite okay even without it. It's meant really for aesthetics, but he's also supporting himself a little bit with that. But it's not really the main support on his body. He walks without it. He could walk without it, more awkward, more this, not so nice, but he manages without it. He's not mistamech. He's not really, yeah, holding his weight, putting his weight on it, right? Okay, that's how Abaye views that, right? And Rashi adds at the end of the dibur something very interesting. What I told you, in other words, basically, yeah, this is not something that's meant for support. It's mainly for beauty, for aesthetics. Nobody wants to see the ugly stump at the end of his feet. I'm sure back then also surgery wasn't so good. So he wants to hide it. That's his main idea. And therefore it's Amod V'Nasim Malachtenu. It's not meant for support. It's not meant for support. Says Abai, it's not Tumah Medres. Rove Omar Af Tumah Medres. Why? Says Rashi, Pe'omim Yoshev Alea. No. Right? As he says later. Rove says, although it's not meant only for Medres, it's true. It's mainly for aesthetics, but you sometimes support yourself in it. Lamaitzi, walk on it. It does give you some support. How much? I don't know, 27.5%. It's a minority, yeah, of support is given here, and although it's mainly for beauty, it's also for support. According to Rava, that's good enough to be called Tumah Medres. It's not a question of Mitzvah, it's a question of Hagdora Ilchatit, yeah? Something that's meant mainly not for support, but also for support. That's like the side benefit. Abai says it's not called Tumah Medres, and Rava says yes. Each one is going to try and bring a proof for his point. Amarove, how do I know that? I'll bring you a proof that now it says in the Mishnah, Agola shel koton. Agola shel koton is not the baby carriage exactly. This is a toddler, which, believe it or not, you know the toddler does. Sometimes he sits in the buggy. Most of the time he pushes the buggy. You know, babies are sometimes in that stage. Yeah. So Mimela, Agola shel koton is mainly made for him playing around. So it's not medras. But sometimes the kid sits inside. So then when he sits inside, yeah, and you take him, then obviously it supports his body. Shmei medres, you see it right, says Rove. Although the reason why his mommy bought it in the shop is a doll, like a dolly kind of buggy for the baby. But the mice, sometimes it sits inside, that's good enough. Oh, Mimela, you see that even though it's not mainly for support, it's still Tumah Medres. The zav can be a cotton, can be a zav. And so too over here with a stump, with a kav shel kitea. Abai or Abai say, "Awesome somichiloye, hachalos somichiloye." Says Abai, that's not true. Over there, sometimes when he sits on it, he really sits on it. Different. You get what I'm saying? When he sits on the buggy and you take him, he sits on it all the time. But shaking the kav, even when he walks on it, it's not really somichim. Yeah, he manages even without it. The baby, once he's inside, 20% of the time, if you rip it under him, it's going to fall and hurt. So it's not the same according to Abai. Well, Rava says it's the same. Abai says it's not. Omar Abai, mino aminalo. Abai says, where do I know from that something that's not real support is not Tumah Medres? That's the time it says in the Brisa, Bakel shel zkenim. It's Bakel shel zkenim. What is that? The walking stick of the old people. We're not talking about halichon of a guy who's, 95 years old in the old age home. It's an old man. What about the old man? He supports himself a little bit with the walking stick, but it's not all for that. It's not 100% for support. We say tor miklum. It's completely tor. You tell me why. It's not mekabel tumas medres and not tumas meis. Why not tumas medres? Abai celebrating. Not tumas medres. It's something dignified. It's nice, and it's also for support. But it's not really supporting him big time. Yeah, it's a partial support, right? And you see it's tar, like Abai said. Why isn't mekabel tumas meis? Everybody, I'm surrounded by geniuses, but it's mamish a stick with no receptacle. Very good. The Rove, what would Rove say? According to Rove, it should be Mekabel Tuma. The Rove says, no, Hosam Litrutz Sugi Avida. Says Rashi, there it doesn't support at all. Letaken si oisa believes koif koima in the sharagel of shokev rotitas vos michas kol gufoy. What would happen if the old man would not have the stick? He would not fall. It only makes his gait more straight because he's shaking. He would walk around shaking all the time like a half-year-old, but he wouldn't fall. Yeah, so that says Rav is zero support. Support means that otherwise he would fall. So even 20% of that is called, yes, is called what? Is called Mekabel Tuma. The handicapped guy, if he doesn't have that support, although it's mainly for beauty, but if he doesn't have it, that's mamish trouble. He mamish wants to support his entire body. He does it for that. Therefore, says Rava, don't compare it. Let's revise. According to Rava, when your 20-30% kavana is for support, but that support is full, that support, yeah, without that, I mainly want to have it for beauty, but it really does give me, it supports all my weight. Then it's Mekabel Tumas Medrash. The old man, no. The old man, his body's not supported by that his weight. It gives him stability to walk straight and not walk all over the place like basically a Parkinson guy. That's the idea. Abai says no. Abai says nishtazoi. Abai says no, that even if the 20-30% of support is there as real support, but your main kavana, your main idea is for beauty, that's your main zach, then it's not Mekabel Tumas. I have to run. Atzlocha, thank you to people who watch us in YouTube, wherever. Baruch Hashem, Atzlocha, Brocha, thank you. And tomorrow, see you tomorrow.